Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate ICA Global Cooperative Conference 2024 to launch UN International Year of Cooperatives 2025. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar inaugurates new embassy premises in Rome to participate in the 10th MED Mediterranean Dialogue. Uruguay's centre-left candidate Orsi claims victory in razor-tight election. Alvaro Delgado's government vows friendly transition. And in sports, India inched closer to a historic Perth victory on the day 4 of the first test. Well, on to the top story. The ICA Global Cooperative Conference 2024 begins in New Delhi today with Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurating it at Bharat Mandapam. With the theme Cooperatives Build Prosperity for All, the conference aligns with India's Sehkar Se Samriddhi or Prosperity Through Cooperation vision. It will focus on the role of cooperatives in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Prime Minister Modi will also launch the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives 2025, themed Cooperatives Build a Better World, and unveil a commemorative postal stamp symbolizing India's commitment to the cooperative movement. The event will be attended by Bhutan's Prime Minister Dasho Tshering Tobgay, Fiji's Deputy Prime Minister Manoa Kamikamica, and around 3,000 delegates from over 100 countries. And now let's tell you what is the International Cooperative Alliance. Well, ICA is the global organization that unites, represents and serves cooperatives around the world. Founded in 1895, London, it is one of the oldest and largest non-governmental organizations, which represents 1 billion cooperative members globally. With approximately 3 million cooperatives across the planet, the ICA serves as the apex body for the cooperative movement, has over 306 member organizations across 105 countries. Well, 2024 ICA Global Conference will mark a historic milestone as it takes place in India for the first time. The conference theme is Cooperatives Build Prosperity for All, which highlights people-centered, purpose-driven and progress-oriented nature of cooperatives. India has been a central figure in the development and success of the International Cooperative Alliance Asia-Pacific. India has been a driving force in shaping cooperative models that have had a profound impact across the Asia-Pacific region. India's cooperative movement is deeply ingrained in its socio-economic fabric. India's cooperative movement reflects values of unity, mutual aid and collective prosperity. The cooperative sector in India spans various domains such as agriculture, banking, housing and rural development. Cooperatives have been instrumental in empowering marginalized communities also. Well, the Indian government has played an active role in supporting the cooperative model. In 2021, the Ministry of Cooperation was established to strengthen the cooperative sector further. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar inaugurated the new Chancery of the Embassy of India in Rome, Italy on Sunday. Speaking on the occasion, the minister said it befits the continued expansion of India-Italy partnership in recent years and that the new premises will help authorities serve better the Indian community in Italy. Dr. Jaishankar also spoke about the long-standing civilizational ties between India and Italy, highlighting their shared social structures.
The opening of a new embassy, our own property, is always a very important occasion for any relationship. It is also a reflection of the commitment and vision of our leaders today in taking forward our ties. There is a convergence in our worldviews, a synergy in our endeavors in addressing global and regional issues, and definitely a new enthusiasm for developing our bilateral ties. India's growing engagement with Europe and particularly to Italy, which we see both as a very influential European and Mediterranean country, certainly reinforce each other. And we've been very pleased to see that Prime Minister Meloni's government has given more attention to Asia and specifically to India.
Well, Dr. S. Jaishankar also interacted with the Indian community and Friends of India in Rome. He's on 3-day visit to Italy from 24th to the 26th of November. The minister will participate in the 10th edition of the MED Mediterranean Dialogue in Rome, being organized by Institute for International Political Studies in collaboration with Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy. During the visit, EAM will also participate in the outreach session of the G7 Foreign Ministers meeting, where India has been invited as a guest country. He's also expected to meet his counterparts from Italy and other participating nations in the G7 related engagements and hold bilateral discussions during the visit. And the winter session of India's Parliament begins on Monday with discussions planned on various bills. The third session of the 18th Lok Sabha and the 266th session of the Rajya Sabha will see the introduction of at least 16 bills. These include the Muslim Waqf Repeal Bill 2024 and the Waqf Amendment Bill are on the agenda. Apart from the Waqf Amendment Bill, 5 bills are listed for introduction and passing in both houses of Parliament. The 5 new bills include Merchant Shipping Bill, Coastal Shipping Bill, Indian Ports Bill, Punjab Courts Amendment Bill and Rashtriya Shakari Vishwavidyalaya Bill. The session will last till December 20th and have 19 sittings. Governments held an all-party meeting ahead of the session, after which Parliamentary Affairs Minister requested the members to ensure smooth functioning of the session.
हम सिर्फ अनुरोध यही करते हैं कि सदन अच्छा से चले, हंगामा ना हो। कोई भी विषय पार्लियामेंट में रखता है तो शांतिपूर्वक उस विषय को चर्चा होगा तो बहुत लाभ मिलेगा। हर सदस्य चर्चा में भाग लेना चाहता है, लेकिन सदन अच्छी तरह से चलना चाहिए। हमने आरंभ में हर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को अपील किया है कि ये शीतकालीन सत्र, विंटर सेशन ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट अच्छी तरह से चले। इसमें सबका सहयोग चाहिए और सबका भागीदारी जरूरी है।
Well, in Maharashtra, the BJP will hold its legislative party meeting today, while the oath-taking ceremony will take place on Tuesday. The newly elected members of BJP will elect their legislative party leader in Mumbai today. The BJP alone got 132 seats, which is nearly a majority in the 288-member assembly, and the tally of the alliance is nearly 5 times that of the opposition alliance Mahavikas Aghadi, which was limited to 50 seats for all its partners combined. The tenure of the current Maharashtra Assembly ends on Tuesday. And India's Shyama Mishra joins us from Mumbai on this. Well, Shyama, in a joint press conference, the leaders of the Mahayuti assured that the next government will be formed very smoothly. What can we expect now?
So in Maharashtra politics, obviously meetings are going on, marathon meetings are going on, and yesterday night, late night, we did see that even the Eknath Shinde group, that is the Shiv Sena group, they decided, they elected their legislative party leader, and it was Eknath Shinde. Earlier in the day, yesterday, we had seen that NCP, they elected Ajit Pawar as their party leader in the Legislative Assembly, and now it's only BJP which is remaining to elect. It is also likely to hold meetings, and internal meetings are obviously going on where they are deciding which face would be the next Chief Minister of Maharashtra. It is also being said, also being reported that the next meeting will take place in the capital, and the topmost leadership of all these parties will decide and will go down at New Delhi, and they will be meeting the top leadership of the BJP to decide and discuss who will be the next Chief Minister. We are also understanding that tomorrow, which is 26th, the oath ceremony has to be taken because the tenure of Maharashtra term, this particular term ends, and it will be tomorrow when the oath ceremony takes place. So obviously it is only today's day where BJP, Shiv Sena and NCP, they have to come together and decide who will be the face of Chief Minister. It is also being understood that the same pattern where one Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Ministers would be there, this will continue, but the Chief Minister is obviously going to be from the BJP because it has secured the maximum number, and who will be the face of that particular position is yet to be decided. But yes, we will have to wait for further meetings and their outcomes as to who and what has been decided in these meetings. Back to you.
All right, Shyama, thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, prominent Indian leaders converged for Hamara Samvidhan, Hamara Samman Padyatra, or a Constitution Our Honour march on Tuesday in Delhi. The program marked a celebratory tribute to the nation's constitution. The event also witnessed the participation of Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju, Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat and BJP leader Yogeshwar Dutt. The event highlighted unity and commitment to the values enshrined in the Indian Constitution, with leaders encouraging citizens to honour and uphold its principle. Union Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia also planted saplings on the occasion. Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat and Dharmendra Pradhan also accompanied him. Now let's take a look at other stories making news today. A fire erupted at a pharmaceutical factory at Amanath in Maharashtra's Thane on Monday. Firefighters are on site working to control the blaze, according to the Thane Municipal Corporation. Handwara police, in collaboration with security forces, uncovered a terrorist hideout in the Mughalpora Kremhora forest area, recovering ammunition and explosives. Tripura Chief Minister Manik Saha launched a blood donation camp at Agiye Chalo Sangh in Agartala, highlighting the growing importance of voluntary blood donation as a key social movement in the state. And still to come, DD India News Hour. Romanian Prime Minister ahead in the first round of presidential vote. UAE arrests suspects in killing of Israeli rabbi, claiming no leniency to any attempts that threaten societal stability. Russia downs 7 Ukrainian missiles over Kursk region.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuranan. Moving on, Uruguay's centre-left opposition candidate Yamando Ori secured victory in the presidential election with 99% of votes tallied in a second-round race. Yamando Ori secured a small but comfortable margin of 49.81% of the vote to Conservative Alvaro Delgado's 45.90%. Ori addressed thousands of his broad front party supporters in Montevideo after the results. Both Delgado and Uruguay's president, fellow National Party member Luis Lacalle Pou, conceded the election, swiftly congratulating Ori and offering to help with the transition after results signaled a victory for the centre-left. Ori, Delgado and Lacalle Pou all expressed goodwill for their political opposition and pledged to work together to move the country forward. And Romania Premier Marcel Cialeco led the first round of Sunday's presidential election with 25% of the votes, and a runoff seems likely after 2 weeks. Cialeco, candidate of the Social Democratic Party, was followed by Elena Lesconi of the Save Romania Union Party with 18%. Some 9.4 million people casted vote in the polls that closed on Sunday, indicating an over 50% voter turnout. Voters were choosing between 13 candidates to replace outgoing President Klaus Lohannes. The top two move on to a runoff on December 8th if no single candidate gets more than 50% of the vote in the first round. Well, 3 people have been arrested in the United Arab Emirates in connection with the murder of an Israeli citizen. The UAE ministry statement did not give details on the suspects or say if they had been charged, but said all legal powers would be used to respond decisively and without leniency to any actions or attempts that threaten societal stability. Zvi Kogan was a resident of the UAE and also a Moldovan national. He worked with the New York-based Orthodox Jewish Chabad movement and was first reported missing on Thursday. His body was discovered on Sunday. Kogan's body was found in the Emirati city of Al Ain, which borders Oman. The body of the murdered Israeli citizen would hopefully be repatriated to Israel on Monday. And moving on, Iran has rejected allegations that it was involved in the murder of Israeli Rabbi Zvi Kogan in the UAE, while the White House said it was working in close coordination with Israel and the UAE. Israel reissued a recommendation to citizens to avoid non-essential travel to the UAE and said those now there should minimize movement, remain in secure areas and avoid visiting places associated with Israel and Jewish populations. The UAE has maintained the relationship during the 13-month Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. There are no official synagogues in Dubai, the UAE's biggest city and commercial hub, but the UAE's one government-approved synagogue in Abu Dhabi remains open. And after more than a year into the Israel-Hamas conflict, calls for ceasefire can be heard from all corners. As per the latest reports, Israel is moving towards a ceasefire agreement in Lebanon with the Hezbollah. Also, U.S. mediator Amos Hochstein highlighted progress in negotiations during a visit to Beirut last week. Israeli media reported that Netanyahu had convened a meeting of his security cabinet. But a separate report from Israel's public broadcaster Kan said there was no green light given on an agreement in Lebanon, with issues still yet to be resolved. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell on Sunday said a U.S. ceasefire proposal was awaiting final approval from Israel on his visit to Lebanon. Borrell said the EU was ready to allocate $200 million to support the Lebanese army.
These last days, it seems that the ceasefire is coming, but it's not coming. Someone is not interested in it. And everybody should understand that the ceasefire is absolutely needed, because the Lebanon capacity is to continue taking care of their people, in spite of the great efforts of these medical doctors, nurses, and hospital organizations, has a limit.
And Hezbollah fired heavy rocket barrages at Israel on Sunday, while Israel also struck Beirut's Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs, where intensified bombardment over the last 2 weeks has coincided with signs of progress in US-led ceasefire talks. Hezbollah, which has previously vowed to respond to attacks on Beirut by targeting Tel Aviv, said it had launched precision missiles at 2 military sites in Tel Aviv and nearby. Israel's military said Hezbollah had fired 250 rockets at Israel, of which many were intercepted. On Sunday, the Israeli military carried out strikes against 12 Hezbollah command centers in the southern Beirut suburb of Dahiyeh. On Saturday, it had carried out one of its deadliest and most powerful strikes in the center of Beirut. Israel says its aim is to secure the return home of tens of thousands of people evacuated from its north due to rocket attacks by Hezbollah, which opened fire in support of Hamas at the start of the Gaza conflict in October 2023. And as Russia-Ukraine conflict escalates, Russia's air defense systems destroyed 7 Ukrainian missiles overnight over the Kursk region on Monday. Providing further details, a pro-Russian military analyst said that Kursk was subjected to a massive attack by foreign-made missiles. Earlier, in a precautionary move, air defenses were in operation in Kyiv late on Sunday as Ukraine shot down 50 of the 73 Russian drones on Saturday. The drones were downed over Ukrainian cities of Kyiv, Cherkasy, Kirovohrad, Chernihiv, Sumy, Poltava and Zhytomyr Blast. In response to the attack, President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Ukraine's Western partners to concentrate their efforts on helping provide a better air defense system. Zelensky said that Ukraine was working with its allies to find a response to Russia's use of a new medium-range ballistic missile last week, and forensic work was proceeding on the missile fragments to determine all the details and specifications concerning the missile, and for finding together a response to this escalation move. And US President-elect Donald Trump's top security pick, Mike Waltz, called for escalation between Russia and Ukraine on Sunday. Waltz stressed that the incoming Trump's administration would work on peace deals in West Asia.
The President-elect has been very concerned about the escalation and where it's all going. If North Korea has made this move, we have made a move, Russia has now responded, Iran is involved, South Korea is thinking about getting involved. Our allies have now, extended the range of their missiles as well. So we need to bring this to a responsible end. We need to restore deterrence, restore peace, and get ahead of this escalation ladder rather than responding to it. We had peace deals being signed on the White House lawn just 4 years ago. Look at where we are today. I am confident President Trump and his leadership and the team that he is putting around him will get us back to that point in pretty short order.
Well, a Russian daily Kommersant newspaper has reported that Russia is likely to name Alexander Darkiv soon as its new ambassador to Washington. Citing 3 unidentified sources, Kommersant newspaper further states that Darkiv is currently the head of the Foreign Ministry's North American department and a former ambassador to Canada. And moving on, Pakistan continues to reel under relentless unrest. In northwestern Pakistan, government officials met with tribal leaders on Sunday in an effort to mediate a ceasefire after days of intense sectarian clashes. Meanwhile, protests erupted across Pakistan on Sunday, demanding the release of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Here's more in this report.
Pakistan finds itself engulfed in unrest as authorities scramble to manage rising sectarian violence and political protest. Government officials met tribal leaders in northwestern Pakistan on Sunday in an effort to mediate a ceasefire after 3 days of sectarian clashes left as many as 82 people dead and 156 injured. On Saturday alone, 18 people were killed and 30 were wounded in continued violence. The clashes, concentrated in the Kurram district of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, sparked urgent discussions with Chief Minister Ali Amin holding a virtual meeting in Peshawar to review the security situation. Earlier on Friday, Parachinar mourned the loss of 40 Shia Muslims killed in an ambush on a bus convoy. Businesses, schools and transportation were shut down in solidarity as tensions escalated. The violence began on Thursday when gunmen attacked civilian convoys, killing mostly Shia Muslims. Retaliatory attacks against Sunni residents have since fueled armed confrontations.
Among the martyrs, there were infants as little as 6 months old and the women. They were innocent passengers. What was their fault? Traders have announced a 3-day mourning. All the markets are closed.
Adding to the turmoil, protests erupted across Pakistan on Sunday, demanding the release of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Several PTI supporters were detained as Islamabad was put on lockdown. Highways and major roads were blocked with shipping containers, mobile services were suspended, and security forces remained on high alert. As Pakistan grapples with dual crisis, sectarian violence in northwest and political unrest in the capital, stability remains elusive. With efforts underway to broker peace and restore order, the country faces an uphill battle to prevent further escalation. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, South Korean court on Monday will set to deliver a sentence against main opposition leader Lee Jae-myung over charges of suborning perjury. Subornation of perjury is the crime of persuading or permitting a person to commit perjury, which is the swearing of a false oath to tell the truth. The verdict comes 10 days after he got a suspended prison term for election violations. Lee, chair of the Democratic Party, is already facing 4 other trials, including for bribery and other charges, mostly tied to a $1 billion property development scandal. Lee is considered a major contender for the next presidential election in 2027. However, his bid is expected to be clouded by the legal battles. And United Kingdom announced to declare spiking a new stand-alone criminal offence to tackle violence against women and girls. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer will convene police chiefs, industry executives and transport bosses in Downing Street on Monday, where he will urge more collaboration to keep women and girls safe. It comes with long-standing fears about female safety in public places increasing in recent years, in part after serving police officers were convicted in several high-profile cases of the murder and rape of young women. Police forces also recorded an increase in spiking incidents in 2021, which they say has since declined alongside a worrying new phenomenon of needle spiking. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. 6 people were killed in an armed attack early on Sunday at the T-Bar bar in Mexico's Tabasco, where an armed commando reportedly targeted one of the patrons, leading to the shooting. 5 people died at the scene, while 1 more passed away en route to the hospital. Additionally, 10 others were injured and taken to various hospitals in the city. Madrid residents attended a unique mass at the Peticano Church on Sunday, where even a bride and groom exchanged rubber duck rings. Founded by comedian Leo Bassi in 2012, the quirky church attracts large crowds with its mix of humor and current affairs. And now we take you live, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is about to brief on the first day of the 3rd session of the 18th Lok Sabha.
नमस्कार साथियों, शीतकालीन सत्र है और माहौल भी शीत ही रहेगा। दो 2024 का ये अंतिम कालखंड चल रहा है। देश पूरे उमंग और उत्साह के साथ 2025 के स्वागत की तैयारी में भी लगा हुआ है। साथियों, संसद का ये सत्र अनेक प्रकार से विशेष है और सबसे बड़ी बात है हमारे संविधान के 75 साल की यात्रा, 75वें साल में उसका प्रवेश, ये अपने आप में लोकतंत्र के लिए एक बहुत ही उज्जवल अवसर है। और कल संविधान सदन में सब मिलकर के इस संविधान के 75वें वर्ष की उसके उत्सव की मिलकर के शुरुआत करेंगे। संविधान निर्माताओं ने संविधान निर्माण करते समय एक एक बिंदु पर बहुत विस्तार से बहस की है और तब जाकर के ऐसा उत्तम दस्तावेज हमें प्राप्त हुआ है। और उसकी एक महत्वपूर्ण इकाई है हमारी संसद। हमारे सांसद भी और हमारी संसद भी पार्लियामेंट में स्वस्थ चर्चा हो, ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग चर्चा में अपना योगदान दें। दुर्भाग्य से कुछ लोगों ने अपने राजनीतिक स्वार्थ के लिए जिनको जनता ने अस्वीकार किया है, वे संसद को भी मुट्ठी भर लोगों के हुड़दंगबाजी से कंट्रोल करने का लगातार प्रयास कर रहे हैं। उनका अपना मकसद तो संसद की गतिविधि को रोकने से ज्यादा सफल नहीं होता है और देश की जनता उनके सारे व्यवहारों को काउंट करती है और जब समय आता है तो सजा भी देती है। लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा पीड़ा की बात यह है कि जो नए सांसद होते हैं, नए विचार, नई ऊर्जा लेकर के आते हैं और ये किसी एक दल में नहीं, सभी दल में आते हैं। उनके अधिकारों को कुछ लोग दबोच देते हैं। सदन में बोलने का उनको अवसर तक नहीं मिलता है। लोकतांत्रिक परंपरा में हर पीढ़ी का काम है आने वाली पीढ़ियों को तैयार करे, लेकिन 80-80, 90-90 बार जनता ने जिनको लगातार नकार दिया है, वे न संसद में चर्चा होने देते हैं, न लोकतंत्र की भावना का सम्मान करते हैं, न ही वह लोगों की आकांक्षाओं का कोई महत्व समझते हैं, उनका उसके प्रति कोई दायित्व है वो कोई समझ पाते हैं। और उसका परिणाम है वो जनता की उम्मीदों पर कभी भी खरे नहीं उतरते हैं और परिणाम स्वरूप जनता को बार बार उनको रिजेक्ट करना पड़ रहा है। साथियों, ये सदन लोकतंत्र की 2024 के पार्लियामेंट के चुनाव के बाद देश की जनता को अपने अपने राज्यों में कुछ स्थानों पर अपनी भावना, अपने विचार, अपनी अपेक्षाएं प्रकट करने का अवसर मिला है। उसमें भी 2024 के लोकसभा के चुनाव के नतीजों को और अधिक ताकत दी गई है राज्यों के द्वारा, और अधिक बल प्रदान किया गया है, और अधिक समर्थन का व्याप बढ़ा है। और लोकतंत्र की यह शर्त है कि हम जनता जनार्दन की भावनाओं का आदर करें, उनकी आशा अपेक्षाओं पर खरा उतरने के लिए दिन रात मेहनत करें। मैं बार बार खास करके विपक्ष के साथियों से आग्रह करता रहा हूं, और कुछ विपक्ष बहुत जिम्मेदारी से व्यवहार करते भी हैं। उनकी भी इच्छा रहती है कि सदन में सुचारू रूप से काम हो, लेकिन लगातार जिनको जनता ने नकार दिया है, वे अपने साथियों की बात को भी दबोच देते थे, उनकी भावनाओं का भी अनादर करते हैं, लोकतंत्र की भावनाओं का अनादर करते हैं। मैं आशा करता हूं कि हमारे नए साथियों को अवसर मिले। सभी दल में नए साथी हैं, उनके पास नए विचार है, भारत को आगे ले जाने के लिए नई नई कल्पनाएं हैं। और आज विश्व भारत की तरफ बहुत आशा भरी नजर से देख रहा है, तब हम संसद का समय का उपयोग वैश्विक स्तर पर भी भारत के आज जो सम्मान बढ़ा है, भारत का प्रति जो आकर्षण बढ़ा है, उसको बल प्रदान करने वाला हमारा व्यवहार रहना चाहिए। विश्व के अंदर भारत को ऐसे अवसर बहुत कम मिलते हैं जो आज मिला है, और भारत की संसद से वो संदेश भी जाना चाहिए कि भारत के मतदाता उनका लोकतंत्र के प्रति समर्पण, उनका संविधान के प्रति समर्पण, उनका संसदीय कार्य पद्धति पर विश्वास, संसद में बैठे हुए हम सबको जनता जनार्दन की इन भावनाओं पर खरा उतरना ही पड़ेगा। और समय की मांग है, हम अब तक जितना समय गंवा चुके हैं उसका थोड़ा पश्चाताप करें, और उसका परिमार्जन करने का उपाय यही है कि हम बहुत ही तंदुरुस्त तरीके से हर विषय के अनेक पहलुओं को संसद भवन में हम उजागर करें, आने वाली पीढ़ियां भी पढ़ेगी उसको, उसमें से प्रेरणा लेगी। मैं आशा करता हूं कि ये सत्र बहुत ही परिणामकारी हो, संविधान के 75वें वर्ष की शान को बढ़ाने वाला हो, भारत की वैश्विक गरिमा को बल देने वाला हो, नए सांसदों को अवसर देने वाला हो, नए विचारों का स्वागत करने वाला हो। इसी भावना के साथ मैं फिर एक बार सभी माननीय सांसदों को उमंग और उत्साह के साथ इस सत्र को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए निमंत्रित करता हूं, स्वागत करता हूं। आप सब साथियों का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
Addressing before the commencement of the winter session of the Parliament, he said this session was very, very special. The Constitution was also completing 75 years and we will all celebrate it together. He said that the makers of our Constitution had put in a lot of effort in framing the entire piece, and our parliamentarians should strive for healthy discussion and should not strive for selfish political reasons, and called for the smooth functioning of the session. He said our work is to prepare the coming generations for a healthy future and spoke how parliamentarians should restrain themselves from creating unhealthy atmosphere in the parliament. We should fulfill the aspirations and expectations of the people from the parliamentarians, he said. And he said that we should not disgrace the principles of democracy and welcome new visions with open arms as the world is looking towards India with great expectations. He also said that India's stature in the world has increased tremendously as the world looks towards India with great hope, and we should uphold that message from our parliament as well. He said, let's welcome new ideas with open arms. And now, time for a short break. Stay tuned.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India. Moving on the heels of contentious climate talks in Azerbaijan, negotiators from around the globe are descending on Busan in South Korea this week with another formidable goal: to hammer out the world's first treaty designed to tackle plastic pollution's explosive growth. The talks start today, but lingering divisions have cast doubts on whether a final agreement is in sight. Let's listen in to Aarti Rana's report.
The fifth round of UN talks on plastic pollution is ostensibly final UN Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee meeting after the previous round of talks in Ottawa ended without a path forward on capping plastic production. The fifth session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee will try and hammer out an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. The debate is expected to focus on whether the deal should seek to slash production. Major producers such as Saudi Arabia and China have urged less contentious strategies such as waste management. Negotiators are working towards the first ever global plastic treaty that addresses not just how plastics are discarded, but also how much plastic is produced and how it is used. The treaty could become the most significant pact to address global climate warming emissions since the 2015 Paris Agreement. Ahead of the meeting, climate activists have been marching, displaying artworks made of plastic waste and calling for the plastic treaty to call legally binding power. Key to any accord will be the United States and China. Earlier this year, Washington raised hopes among environmentalists by signaling support for some limits on production. The election of Donald Trump has raised questions about how ambitious the US delegation will be. Final agreement is due in December, making this one of the fastest UN-led treaty efforts to date. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.
And updates from IFFI now, as the 18th edition of Film Bazaar at the ongoing 55th International Film Festival of India and Goa concluded in great style, having witnessed one of the most successful editions of B2B exchange in the world of cinema. Our next report from Goa brings you more.
The 55th edition of International Film Festival of India witnessed the successful conclusion of the 18th Film Bazaar edition. The flagship event of IFFI served as a perfect business-to-business platform for cinegoers and economy creators.
Here I'm presenting 4 films and actually like all production house. So I'm presenting films, 2 of them, Firebird and We Should Make Movies About Love, were done in Varanasi together with Respect India Entertainment. And also I'm presenting films and like establishing contacts for co-production between Russia and India. Yeah, so since it's a co-production treaty between Russia and India, so we are now looking for good projects, audience-oriented projects between our countries, so which can be interesting both in India and Russia.
I'm very happy and very delighted to be here, first of all. This is my second time when I'm participating this Film Bazaar, and I was happy to visit this year, during this year, because the opportunity of distribution between 2 countries, Russia and India, are growing up, and I believe that my company Media Telecom from Russia will be able to involve our efforts into this very important process, because our culture is quite close, and that is why we have a very, from my point of view, fruitful future.
And so glad to be here. It's really beyond our expectations. It's been so fantastic and adventurous actually here. Everything is perfectly planned and so many things to enjoy, connect with people, with different studios and distributors, as well as get to know more about the cinema, what's happening all over the world. So I think it's really commendable for me to NFDC and INB Ministry and the festival, IFFI Goa, to organize such a huge event at this scale.
Film Bazaar is a converging point for South Asian and international filmmakers and film producers, sales agents and festival programmers for potential creative and financial collaboration. Over the course of 5 days, the festival focused on discovering, supporting and showcasing South Asian content and talent in filmmaking, production and distribution. The bazaar also encouraged the sales of world cinema in the South Asian region.
The 18th edition of Film Bazaar concluded in great style at the 55th edition of International Film Festival of India. Over the days, we saw the walk-in of national and international filmmakers, critics, actors and young minds who looked after the business-to-business platforms and shared their thoughts and more horizons to be explored for the opportunities which are yet to come, because the future is now for all the delegates who attended the 18th Film Bazaar. With camera person Alok, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Goa.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. In sports, world number 1 Yannick Sinner leads Italy to consecutive Davis Cup title. And marking the start of the holiday season, Paris's iconic Champs-Élysées lit up with its annual Christmas display. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Lapakshi Kunal and time now for some sports news. Mohammad Siraj has struck again, and this time he handed over the wicket of Steve Smith for 17 on the fourth day of the Perth Test. Travis Head, who has brought up his half-century, has now been joined by Mitchell Marsh at the crease as 5 down. Australia are in a desperate need for a stable partnership. On the other hand, India bowlers are eyeing some quick wickets to bundle out the host at the earliest. India are 7 wickets away from winning the Perth Test against Australia and taking a commanding 1-0 lead in the 5-match series. Set to chase an improbable target of 534, Australia were reduced to 12 for 3 at the end of slumps on day 3 by the visitors. An Italian Yannick Sinner completed a remarkable season by sealing his country a second successive Davis Cup title with a 2-0 victory over Netherlands in the final at Malaga on Sunday. World number 1 Sinner produced a commanding display to outclass Talon Griekspoor in the second single rubber to wrap up the win after Matteo Berrettini comfortably beat Wojtek van de Zandschulp 6-4, 6-2 in the first singles clash. It was Italy's third title in the elite men's team competition following their triumphs in the 1976 and last year. A week after capturing the ATP Finals title, Sinner led Italy to another triumph to cap a season in which he also won 2 Grand Slam titles. Paul Heerhuis, Netherlands, were looking to capture their first title in 104 years after reaching the final for the first time, but favourites Italy simply overpowered them. And the Physical Education Foundation of India on Sunday organised 7th PEFI National Awards in New Delhi under the aegis of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, recognising and honouring outstanding contributions and achievements in the field of physical education, sports and fitness in India. 29 professionals, including teachers and coaches, were awarded. The programme featured Ministry of Sports Joint Secretary Kunal as the chief guest and Khelo India's High Performance Manager and Arjuna Award winner Yashpal Solanki. Indian wrestler Chirag Chikara was awarded the Emerging Sportsperson of the Year award. PEFI awards celebrate achievements through categories such as Lifetime Achievement in Physical Education, Best Physical Education Teacher, Best Yoga Teacher and more. The ceremony aims to inspire continued excellence and motivate the sports and physical education community.
इस नेशनल अवार्ड के द्वारा जो पूरे देश में फिजिकल एजुकेशन और स्पोर्ट्स के क्षेत्र में इन्होंने जो काम कर रहे हैं उनको रिकॉग्नाइज किया है, उसके लिए मैं कहूँगा पेफी बहुत ही बधाई के पात्र है। अगर हमको भारत को 36 में ओलंपिक होस्ट करने का प्लान बना रहे हैं, उसमें हमारा ये भी प्रयास है कि भारत मेडल टैली में टॉप 10 में आए, तो स्कूलों की बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका रहेगी कि आज उस जमाने में जो भी मेडलिस्ट रहेंगे, आपके सानिध्य में जो बच्चे पढ़ रहे हैं वो जरूरी रहेंगे।
The PEFI Awards always provides a platform to recognize the physical education teachers because as such we don't have any such platform in which physical education teachers can be rewarded at a national level. So it's a source of inspiration and motivation for the physical education teachers to push themselves more harder and to contribute more towards the development of the nation by keeping the students of the nation fit and healthy.
And Paris's iconic Champs-Élysées lit up with its annual Christmas display on Sunday, marking the start of the holiday season. A total of 400 trees along the avenue were decorated with LED lights shaped like wine glasses. Tourists and locals alike roamed on the avenue. The lights will glitter on the Champs-Élysées every night under midnight until Jan 5th next year. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.